Welcome to tonight's feature presentation. It's getting late and just about the right time for a midnight movie. We better get the show on the road. Enjoy!
My name's Maggie Hilton and I came to the island about 30 years ago. I actually came on a day trip and I just loved it so much and just decided there and then to move over. And to be honest, it's the best decision that I've ever made.
I'm Rick Hilton. I'm a partner in the Enchanted manor with my wife Maggie. We came to live here through establishing another 5-star B&B accommodation on the island called Cottage in God's Hill, and through that going well, it gave us the inspiration to do something a bit bigger. The manor came up and we thought, well, we loved the location, the building needed a lot of work. But at the end of the day, we could see through all the bad bits and knew what we could create here, and that's how it all evolved.
I mean, we moved to the manor about 5 years ago, and as soon as we came through the door, even though it was very run down and a bit dilapidated, we just loved it, and it had such a good feeling. The manor was actually built in 1838 and it was built by the Kirkpatrick family, and they came from Scotland, and they lived here until the early 1960s, and that was the last of the generation, and then it became a hotel. They built this house for their daughter and they were originally going to build it down near the lighthouse, but it was too windy there. But if you go down there, you'll see the big gate post. They actually built the gate post and then decided to build it here. And there's been quite a few strange things that have happened to do with the family.
And actually in the past we've had a descendant of the Kirkpatricks come and visit us, quite an old lady, and she was so glad that we'd sort of restored it and hadn't let it go to rack and ruin. But she had some quite good memories of it, sort of from her early days, of when it was, more as the centre of the whole community here.
There's been quite a few different, quite strange things, because we never ever mention anything about any spirits here or anything. But we have one particular bedroom, the Oberon suite, which if anyone ever says anything, it's always about that suite. And we've had so many people say to us that they felt a presence in there, and actually a few times there's been somebody that's come up in the night and just held the lady's hand, and that's happened 3 or 4 different occasions without anybody else knowing. And again, no one's been scared at all. It's just amazing. And there's been a few other things. Usually about 8 o'clock of an evening, down the stairway from the Oberon suite, there's a sweet smell of perfume, and quite a few people have noticed that as well. There was an instance, actually, just a few nights ago, again in the Oberon suite, and I've just brought a little note, because somebody just left me a note, just a guest, called Stephen Joe, and she's actually wrote, so and I said to Rick, I said, I don't believe this, and this is what she wrote. She wrote, the ghost in our room's name is Elsie. She's about 24 years old. There was a very male-dominant spirit here, but his power's now diminished since the beauty you have brought in. The 2 ladies feel happy, Elsie and Mrs. Prendergast, and Mrs. Prendergast is the resident ghost here. You know, it's just amazing. And that was the Oberon suite, which she would not have known about. But Mrs. Prendergast, the daughter, her spirit is still here, and we've had people that have seen a Victorian lady pass by the Oberon suite as well. And at the top, where the attic used to be, which are now rooms, we've had a few strange things happen there, and chairs have actually moved from one room out into the hallway. And I know for a fact that has happened because I've seen it. We have heard from a few other people about there's 2 young sort of Victorian or Edwardian children that, they've seen them around the hotel. But Mrs. Prendergast is the main character, and I'm sure that she's looking at us now from the top, and I think she's really pleased that we've taken it over, and that's why there isn't any bad vibes or anything here. But a lot of the times we have like these dancing lights, and there's no light outside, and we've actually had people that have taken photographs, and they've come out on photographs.
People who feel sort of something around here, and there's been quite a bit of photography done, and the orbs are quite strong in this area. And also through here, this is the Dreamtime suite, and this suite too in particular has got quite a strong feeling sort of around here, around this area here, where they feel the spirit's quite strong. But nice, warm, sort of welcoming type of thing. And reportedly there's a tunnel that goes from this house underneath over to the cliff edge, where there's all these beautiful little cottages there that used to be the servants' quarters for here. And there's supposed to be a tunnel that goes from here under there to the cliff edge. I think there are days of smuggling and whatever. I mean, we haven't found it as yet. but we haven't stopped looking. Now around this area here is where guests and ourselves have experienced the smell of an old lady's perfume. And Maggie said she can remember it on a great aunt's years ago, and I can in Australia. It's not a perfume of a modern sort of age. It's not all the time, but at times it's as if someone's sort of been moving through or whatever. And so that's quite interesting. I think myself, through opening it up, that we've really sort of got the place going, because a lot of people, they always say, I bet you this years ago was a really happy family home. Even in the days of the Victorians, you know, when it was a big family home. And happy things happened here. So we're just glad that we're able to grab it and resurrect it again, you know. This is the Oberon suite, and this is where the Victorian lady has actually hurled the lady's hand. And this, it's funny, this side of the bed, near the window, and the lady lying down and of a night, early morning normally, and this lady has held the lady in the bed's hand, but in a very motherly sort of a way. So no one has ever said frightening. And all these experiences have happened from people who just don't know each other. And obviously there's something that has happened. So I never tell people, I just wait to be told.
I'll be honest with you, I've never really sort of been much of a believer in things that I don't know or I haven't experienced myself. And to be honest, before we came here, I'd never really seen anything or felt anything. And here, I do feel that there is a presence, definitely. And I know that there is something by all the different people that don't know each other, that stay in the same suite and say exactly the same thing.
I was the biggest sceptic that you could ever meet, because obviously coming from Australia, we haven't got the history that England's got, we haven't got the old buildings that England's got, and although I always loved the sort of ghosty, spirity thing, I was a sceptic, I must admit, but being in England, and particularly here, I've changed my mind totally.
When I first moved to the island, I've always lived in really old houses, and some of them had quite bad feelings, and I always felt pretty uneasy. And the amazing part was, as soon as I walked through the door here, it had such a really, really lovely feeling, and all our guests that come here have the same experience.
Obviously, these old houses probably draw that sort of type of person here, and quite a few have had experiences, but not of the dark kind. You know, of quite a nice feeling, and have sort of come back again because of it, I think.
My name is Donna. Myself and my sister last November decided to have a girls' joint venture, and we bought the Castle Inn. The pub was first built in 1550. There was a fire in 1684 where they rebuilt a lot of the back part of the pub, but the floors and the beams and the front wall are all the original. It was a brothel apparently in its early days. It was licensed for cockfighting, and then obviously in the back part we've got a stable bar which housed horses and carts and all that sort of thing. One of the main things that happens here is the 5 Ps. We find 5 Ps everywhere in random places, under bottles, glasses, as well as on the floor. And legend has it that it's a young stable lad who hung himself here over an unpaid debt, and the 5 Ps are his way of paying it back.
You know,
this announcement.
Sometimes the fridge doors open by themselves, or the doors at the far end of the pub. Apparently that's where the ladies of the night used to take their gentlemen, and quite often you find the doors open there, and they've got little pegs in, so there's no way they could open on their own. Yeah, there's a couple of customers who have had experiences here. In the gents' toilets, funnily enough, where they feel a tapping on their shoulder, and then there's no one there. Apparently an old chap was murdered out in our toilet area, and he supposedly haunts the pub. And on several occasions I have heard coughing coming from that vicinity, and there's no one there. A lot of positive energy here, particularly in the front part of the pub. I've never felt frightened or threatened or anything like that. Always quite a nice warm feeling. The The only sometimes you feel a little bit unsettled is out in the stable bar if you happen to be out there on your own. It's very, very cold in there. At Christmas, there was a private party out in our stable bar, and a customer was just taking photos of her friends, and she brought the photo in to show me. In one of the photos, there's a black figure in the background, and it's not a shadow, and it's not a person, but it's quite clearly a figure. So that's quite interesting as to what that is. We had a ghost investigation here 2 weeks ago, and one of the mediums had a look at the photo, and she said it is the stable boy who hung himself. I've never felt frightened here at all, ever. I've always found it really welcoming, and I've spent a lot of time here on my own. Never been frightened. And I don't think the other staff have either. I think on the whole it's quite a positive feel about it. I'm very sceptical. I'm willing to believe the paranormal. I'm willing to believe it, but I kind of need to see it to believe it. But the few incidents that I have had, I would say are unexplainable.
Hi, my name is Daphne Brown, and I've been a member of Cowes Amateur Operatic and Dramatic Society here at Trinity Theatre since 1983. Originally, the building was the church hall for Trinity Theatre, which is up the road. Before the war, it was a drawing office. As far as we know, during the war, it was a WRVS station, and then went back to being a drawing office until the society actually bought it in, I think it was about 79. When I'm here on my own, I will hear sounds, bangs, footsteps coming from up here in the auditorium. In fact, last Tuesday I was here down in the club room hanging up costumes, and I know I was on my own, and as I put the key into the door to go in, I heard a thump from up here, and the thumps carried on all the while I was downstairs, until I told them to be quiet. There is a room downstairs which we store the ladies' costumes, which I do not like being in, but I have to spend a lot of time in there, so I will not stay in there with the door closed. I always have to make sure the door is open when I'm in there. Yeah, I was getting out the costumes for the pantomime last December, I looked along the rails downstairs for a particular costume 5 or 6 times, and also the lady that was with me helping me, she'd looked along, we couldn't find it anywhere. So in the end I said, for goodness sake, Jonathan, we've been told the gentleman's name's Jonathan, for goodness sake, Jonathan, help me find this costume. And the next time I went along the rails, the costume was actually sticking out from the rail, which was very helpful. One day a few years ago, when we were hardboarding the stage, I was up here, lovely sunny day, a lot of the people had gone out for lunch, I was standing here on the stage, roughly in this position, talking to one of the chaps, and I happened to glance up at the little windows which come out from the lighting box up there, and I suddenly saw a man in a top hat looking at me. I said, "Oh, who's that?" or words to that effect. And as I looked back again, he'd gone. We've had quite a few paranormal societies here who have picked up on various other things. We've often been told there's a little girl up here. We're not quite sure where she comes from, why she's here, but she's quite happy to be here. And also we've been told that when these seats were brought from Shanklin Theatre, a gentleman by the name of Albert came with them. He was an actor, apparently, in the early days of Shanklin Theatre, and he likes being here, obviously. He will quite often sit and watch. I've actually seen a seat go down, as if he has settled himself down to watch something on stage. We do have some footprints in part of the floor up here in the auditorium, which will not go. The floor has been scrubbed, they won't go. Occasionally they're a bit difficult to see, but they're always there. We have been told that, once again by one of the psychics that was here, that it was to do with when the place was a dressing station during the war, but we know no more than that.
My name's Roger Coleman, I'm manager of Shanklin Theatre. I've been manager since 2010 when the theatre opened, or reopened after the council closed it. My duties are generally day-to-day looking after the theatre and keeping it up and running. There's not a lot actually recorded about the theatre. We have a historian that's actually looking into the theatre and coming up with information of things that have happened in the area and how the theatre became as it was. But there's not a lot in the actual public records of it. When I started here as a volunteer initially, I was conscious often of people around me, although when you turned around there was no one about. The most interesting experience was I came in one morning just past the box office door and I looked towards where the big clock is, and I had this feeling that there was someone there, although I couldn't see anyone. And I walked down into the auditorium, across the auditorium floor, up onto the stage, and the stage was in darkness. But as I got to this stage, I had this feeling that this person was there with me again. And as I walked over to put the lights on, I got the feeling that he was following me across there. I put the lights on, came back across the stage. I was halfway across the stage, and there were some radio mic belt packs left on the table there. And as you know, they're made of plastic and they've got a particular sort of sound to them. And it was just as though they'd been picked up and rattled. So I turned around and went back and had a look. They were exactly as they'd been left. So I walked back out, went down into the dressing rooms to start emptying all the bins. And as I went along the corridor, I was conscious that every time I went into one of the dressing rooms and picked up one of the bins, that someone was looking over my shoulder to see what I was doing. And as I went along through the corridor to the dressing rooms, the last dressing room, I opened the door, went in, came out, and as I tried to shut the door, I couldn't shut the door. It was just as though someone was the other side of the door trying to stop me closing it. I eventually did close it, and as I turned round and walked back along the corridor, I heard the door open. When I actually became fully employed here in the August, from that time on, the experiences seemed to take on a different format in that I felt that the person wasn't actually following me all the time, that it was sort of happy that I was now here full time and knew that they could respect what I was doing. Since then, one interesting thing is that we've had several people in doing investigations and they've come up with the name of the person who's called Lol. And we think he's probably in about his 40s. And I always speak to him when I come in the mornings, and if I don't, there's one particular door which we put a peg under, and if I don't speak to him, he closes the door. But every time I speak to him, it never happens. And another interesting thing that happened in June, July last year, we had some Americans in to do a show here. They'd only been in the building a few minutes, and one of the ladies sat on the stairs below the clock, and she said, "Oh, someone's just brushed past me." And she looked towards me and she said, "Who's that stood next to you?" She says, "A man with dark hair in about his 40s. And I said, "Oh, that must be Lol." She says, "Yes, he stood right by you." And she knew nothing of it because this was their first time here. They'd literally only been in the building a couple of minutes. Yes, a couple of the other staff have seen shadows across the clock and have felt other things here. We've had some of the people that have been working with various artists have come in here, and there are certain parts of the building they sort of think they're not quite happy about, or there's something there, they can't really explain it, but it's always in areas where we ourselves have experienced something here in the building.
Some people do feel a bit worried, but I think it's all positive. The only place that I do have difficulty with, as I say, is in the costume store downstairs. But the man down there, we're sure it's a man. He's not a nasty man, he's just a very forceful man. And he doesn't always like people in there. But I think he's used to me by now, with the amount of time I spend in there. Yes, I have believed in paranormal for a long time.
Some years ago, when I was I went to New Year's Eve to Kay Knighton, which actually appears in one of Gay's books, and I was with some friends and we experienced the house appearing on New Year's Eve. So yeah, I've always had an interest in it. So I was sceptical at times, but having been here at the theatre now and things happening more to me, you know, I do think there is more to it than we can understand.
I think it's mainly the members that hear things, although, as I say, we have had quite a few paranormal groups in just recently, and they're all explaining to us the things that we hear and see, and it is quite regular, yes.
People have told us that they are quite happy ghosts. There's actually more than one here. They reckon there's quite a few actually here. They're all very happy, and it's a nice atmosphere. Everyone that comes in here says, "What a beautiful atmosphere it is in here." Oh no, definitely not negative, no. In the early days I was a bit wary when I used to walk around, but no, we all know now that it's quite a happy atmosphere, and no, it doesn't bother any of us now.
Hello, my name's Sue Dorman. I'm the General Manager here at the Isle of Wight Pearl. I've worked here for 22 years, and in that time I've had several encounters with spooks. we didn't really know what it was, to be fair. And then we had a guy that worked here who, I wouldn't like to say he was a medium, he thought he was. He was training, and he told me that I had a gentleman that stood behind me when I was at my desk upstairs. Well, then things started to go missing off my desk. So I put it down to the fact that this gentleman didn't like the fact I was really untidy. So we got involved with Gay. We've heard noises and bumps and things like that. And Gay came along, and then Mark, Tucky and Sarah turned up. And Sarah found all sorts. I was explaining to her what had happened and that there was something not very nice upstairs. As I was talking to Sarah about the upstairs, a picture flew off the wall and smashed on the floor, frightening a customer because he hadn't touched it. And Sarah then sort of stated that the ghost didn't want her to go upstairs because he knew that she was going to get rid of him. So Sarah and Toby came back with Mark and Gay, and they performed what I call an exorcism, really. Before that, there was lots and lots of activity. I think they were getting excited because they knew someone was coming.
My name's Rosanne and I work at the Isle of Wight Pearl in marketing. Encounters, I've had two situations I've been involved in, put it that way. First one being I did some event posters, and there was an event poster put out in Pick a Pearl in the Pearl Academy room. Behind the Pearl Academy room, and it was in a glass clip frame. That was placed behind the visitor's book and left. I was in the conservatory doing a Pearl Academy at the time, and it was when Sarah and Mark first visited the place. They were stood over by counter 8 talking to Sue, and there was a massive crash, and they went rushing around to see what this massive crash was. There's a poor guy stood in Pick a Pearl going, wasn't me, wasn't me, it wasn't me, and the events poster had smashed on the floor. But the visitor's book and everything else that was on the shelf was still in the place that it was in the first place. If it had just slid off, obviously the visitor's book and everything would have gone with it. Sarah said, they don't want us here. So that was the first thing that kind of made me bit, oh, hello. The second thing was, again, I was in the same place doing a Pearl Academy, and there was a group of hoteliers here that we were just introducing to the place, and we were all stood, and we were the only people in there. We were in the cafe, and we were literally kind of stood just in front of the door, and you've got the cake counter running along about 5 metres away from us, and there's a little cake stand about that big sat on top of the chiller cabinet, and we were chatting away. The ghost situation kind of cropped up in the conversation, and this little sign flew across the room and landed about 10 foot away on the other side of the coffee shop. And it was myself and about 5 other people that witnessed it actually happen. And we all just went, okay then, and about turned and walked away.
Sarah discovered children here, and it turned out that the children were hiding things that were on my desk because they didn't have anything to play with. So they asked me for things to play with, which we left them some bits and pieces, and also she told me that I take the children home with me at night sometimes. I wasn't aware that I was doing this, but it didn't really scare me. So this week we've heard lots of noises, them running around upstairs. So yeah, I think they were getting excited again about tonight. So that's my experiences.
I have come from a house in Freshwater Bay that was supposed to have a poltergeist, and I never myself had any occurrences, but I've had so many stories told to me by guests, because it was a guest house, and heard so many things from my parents and one thing and another that I'm a cautious skeptic, put it that way, but I'm massively interested, so I don't care. I'm up for a good story.
And I've always believed in spirits because a member of my family was a spiritualist healer. So I had a little insight, and I have had previous, over the years, a couple of sightings. When I had my second son, just after giving birth, my grandmother and my father-in-law came into the ward to see the baby, and obviously they weren't alive. And I had a little chat with them, and then my dog died, and I saw my dog indoors. So yeah, I've always believed.
I think people just feel quite an enchanting presence.
You have an inner confidence when you're in this building that you probably wouldn't get anywhere else.
A lot of people come and say, "Oh, I feel so happy now I've been in here." I'm Susan DeVere, and I was working for 28 years as a journalist and magazine editor and newspapers. And I just happened to go to an auction near Southampton because a friend of mine wanted to buy a property, and I was just sort of bowling around, and I heard, hotel on the Isle of Wight. So I thought, I could change my life. I could go and live on the Isle of Wight. We kept an open mind. We went all over the island,
And eventually we ended up in the car park down here in Old Shanklin and looked up here at the Vernon and thought, oh, and he said, well, I think the girls want to sell the Vernon. And we said, oh, what, this place? And then he said, yes, yeah, I've got the keys, would you want to go and have a look? And, oh, wow, yeah, thank you very much. Of course it looked, it's a beautiful thatched iconic building, etc. But as he opened the front door, it felt as though we were sort of physically propelled down the corridor. I can't explain it. It was like we were yanked in the door and pulled. And it was only, we literally got to the first door in the building, and I turned to my husband and I said, gosh, this is the place, isn't it? And he said, yes, this is it. So it's really unusual. And then we spent about a year trying to buy it, but we always sort of felt it was going to happen. And the following January, 22nd of January the following year, we found ourselves here, and we found that it was as though someone was saying to us, come on, you've got to completely gut it, redecorate it, redo it, do everything. Quite sort of an enchanting feel to it all, but quite a taskmaster, come on with it. And so we completely gutted it, we redecorated it, and we felt as though the presence was saying to us, yes, this is right, this is how I like it, thank you very much. And my husband's tools kept going missing, the mobile phone kept going missing, we kept finding 5p pieces, but we didn't know why. One night I woke up and I felt someone was stroking my cheek. Another night I thought I saw a huge black penny farthing in the corner of the bedroom. Now, of course, 4 or 5 years on, we have our 3 silver penny farthings for the bike racks, but it was all inspired by that. I thought I was dreaming at the time, but I wasn't. Vernon Cottage was built in 1817. I think it was the first thatched cottage to be built in Old Shanklin. Old Shanklin Village has a sort of history of smuggling. This was very much a smuggling cottage. When I say a cottage, it was a big cottage when it was built. We have a secret underground tunnel which goes from here all the way to the bottom of Shanklin Chine. And also we have the secret room upstairs, which is now the lounge, obviously, because we live upstairs, but it was originally the mistress's bedroom. And apparently the bed used to cover the secret hatch to the secret room because all the contraband was kept in there. So when the customs and excise men came and said, give us your booty or whatever, they weren't allowed to go into the ladies' bedroom, ladies' boudoir. So the contraband stayed safe. So it's quite interesting. Apparently, young children used to play down the tunnel even up to 25, 30 years ago. But we are in the process of starting to look at it, possibly excavate it, or certainly send a robot down it and see what we can find.
Paul De Vere, owner with my wife of Vernon Cottage in Shanklin. Francis has a habit of taking my tools, especially when I'm trying to work on the place. One instance in particular, I can remember trying to drill through a wall with a very long drill, about 2 foot long, which I knew was long enough to go through the wall. But the wall's only about 1.5 foot. But after I'd started drilling in, it's almost as if it felt like someone was pulling the drill through. So I did so, went round to the other side of the wall to find out where it had come out, and nothing. So I tried 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 different locations, and every time, in fact the last time I went to pull it out and my drill had come off the drill, and I don't know where it's gone, but I never got through the wall in the end. Different things when you're doing something, you turn round and it's gone. And this is with no one else in the building at all. So after a while, they call it the paranormal, but after a while you find it quite normal. So it's not sinister or upsetting.
But we'd been here, we completely gutted it, took a couple of months, and we'd been here about 3 months, 2 or 3 months, and I went out into the garden to serve someone their cream tea. And this gentleman said, "Oh, I'm a medium. You've been here before," he said. You've got to be joking. I've never been to here before. I think I'd only been to the Isle of Wight a few times in my life. And I said, "No, I've never been here before." He said, "Oh, yes, you definitely have been here before." Anyway, he said, "I'm a medium. Could I come in and have a look?" And he said that there's a man in black who comes through this wall here and walks across the building, who he thinks walks across here from before the building was built. Possibly it looks a bit like a monk, he said. And I have seen a man or a figure in black walking across here from our CCTV orb. So, I thought, well, that's quite possible. He started to talk to this lady at length, and I thought it was a bit odd, and we couldn't see her. And he said, "Now, Frances is here. She presents herself in her beautiful younger self. She lived here for about 30 years, and she looked after the owner of the house, who she was in love with. And she's remained here as an enchanting presence to protect the building. And she remains here because she chooses to remain here. She's not a trapped spirit. She wants to be here." And so that explained quite a lot. And then he stood at the top of the stairs, having walked all around the building, and he started to sort of clutch himself, if you like, and say, "I know how she died. She fell down the stairs and died." And he said that she would have been in her 60s at the time, although he was seeing a younger person. And so we were still in two minds about the whole thing. But then he said to us, "She wants to know if you find the 5 pence pieces." And that was what made us catch our breath, because from the moment we moved in here, we kept finding 5 pence pieces. Now, whether it's because they resemble old sixpences, I don't know. And we'd find them on a regular basis, on a daily basis. I'd find them next to my bed. We found them. It was almost like a form of approval that if we did something that she liked, that Frances likes, because she's got a name now, that she left us a 5 pence piece. And you felt almost sort of embraced by her, if you like, hugged by her in a way. And so he could not have possibly have known that. We'd only been here a few months. We didn't actually write about Frances in our menus till 4 years later. So he could not possibly have known that. And that's when we thought, well, he must be right. And then we found a secret room upstairs. When we ripped all the carpets, because we'd gutted the downstairs, we did the upstairs. And it's a sort of a 10 by 5 foot room. And in it were lots of old photographs, line drawings, etc. And in there, I always wear pink. This is what's so odd. And we actually painted the place in mauves and pinks, etc. And I always wear some pink, not necessarily full pink, but something, even be it a flower. And when we found all the pictures, it was extraordinary, because in this picture of the building, it was 1830. This building, Vernon Cottage, was built in 1817 by Edward Vernon Utterson. And this was taken, this is a line drawing that was done in 1830. And in it, the lady's in pink. So it's really quite extraordinary. And so it all knitted together. And the fact that he said, well, you've been here before. I don't know if I'm the lady in pink. I don't think I am. But maybe she liked me because I wore pink. Maybe she just felt we'd do the place up and look after it. And be very accepting of her. But lots of people that come here say they sort of feel an enchanting presence. There's definitely something enchanting here, and we call her Frances. Oh yes, now the specials board, for some reason, she's never keen, she doesn't like blackboards. Now whether that's something that stems from that era, you know, when they were taught, maybe they had to write on blackboards or something, but she's not keen on blackboards. And you know, because it keeps falling off the wall, about once a week it falls off the wall. So sometimes we don't even bother with the specials board because Frances doesn't like it. But we did, suddenly have ideas. You feel she's telling you to do something. I can't explain it, but one morning I woke up and I said to my husband, we've got to do Old Shanklin pie. We're going to make a pie and we're going to call it Old Shanklin pie. And so we do Old Shanklin pie now. The idea sort of came out of nowhere. And the way we arranged the tables in the garden, she likes symmetry. When I say she's she's not a hard taskmaster, but she has a vision. You know that she wants you to do it up. And we constantly try and tweak things and improve things. And you always know if she likes something because it stays there. If you put up a picture and Frances doesn't like it, it falls down. So you get a good idea of her taste and the things she likes. The figure in black that walks through here. Now, I have seen this figure in black literally walk, whereabouts you'll stand, just walk, it comes through this wall and walks through. And lots of people that sit on table 3 and table 6 there say, whoa, they definitely feel something. But I don't think he's part of the building, I think he's just walking through. I've only seen Frances, our lady ghost, once, and I thought I saw a cloak go up the stairs, a long black cloak go up the stairs, not pink, long black. And I thought someone had gone upstairs, and I ran up and I looked under every bed, every wardrobe, there was no one up there. And when I came back down, because I was convinced I saw someone go, one of the young chaps that works for us, front of house staff, he was standing by the coffee machine in the kitchen, which looks down the corridor towards the bottom of the stairs. And when I came down, he said, oh, someone just went up the stairs, did you see them, dressed in black? So we think probably that was Frances, although it could have been the monk. Maybe he took a detour up the stairs, I don't know. But we have children, because young children seem to use their sixth sense. They're very drawn to anything spiritual, if you like. And one little boy a few weeks ago, he said, oh, I'm looking for Frances. Because he'd obviously read the story, because we put the story in the menu now. And I said, oh, go and see if you can find a 5p piece. I thought, well, that'd keep him occupied for a while his parents have their dinner or whatever. He was back within 20 seconds with a 5p piece in his hand. So, and when I go to the mainland, I'll open up my case or something and there'll be a 5p piece in it. Or I find 5p pieces in the car. I find 5p pieces next to the bed. So you know when she's pleased with you. And when we had the 3 bikes built, the penny farthings, they're for cycle racks, for Bicycle Island, etc. On the floor next to one of them, I found a 5p piece. So she obviously likes them.
There are unusual things, and I was probably, I confess, sceptic, if you like, to start with, but after a while it just becomes normal. Anything like that happens, and it happens to other people that come here. I've had an electrician who's tried to do things and drill through a wall, and the next thing he's tapping me on the shoulder saying, I've lost 2 drills. And then of course the next thing you know is you'll find a 5p piece. Unfortunately not enough to cover the cost of anything that she's taken, but maybe that's her way of saying thank you.
One of our chefs, he was French, of course, he kept insisting that the lady ghost was passing him on the bottom. And my husband has had spoons flying across the kitchen. And obviously things going missing, really, that's the main thing. Sometimes we can't find the menus. And we must have about 40 or 50 menus, and sometimes we can only find 2 or 3, and then suddenly we'll find a pile of them somewhere, and people say, well, who put them in a pile there? And we don't know is the answer. I think people just sort of feel quite an enchanting presence, you know. A lot of people come in and say, oh, I feel so happy now I've been in here.
I must admit, when we first started here 5 years ago, I was probably a little bit nervous about some of the new recipes, etc. But you have an inner confidence when you're in this building that you probably wouldn't get anywhere else. I've had an incident in the kitchen in the morning when not very busy and just preparing some food for the day, and suddenly off the wall above the cooker a whole rack of spoons and cooking implements, whisks, everything came crashing down onto the floor. Now, it was held on with little spring clips in a cavity wall, and there was no damage to the wall. There was no reason it should have come off the wall. So we just simply clear it up, put it in to wash up and everything, and have to put the whole lot together again. And on the floor, 2 or 3 5p pieces. So I ask you, where did they come from? I don't know. One recipe in particular that we're very proud of is our burgers that we make here at the Vernon cottage. And very early on, I was making burgers one evening, and I'd cooked up some red onions, which had to cool down before you could add them into the minced beef. So needing another pair of hands, I mixed up my burger mix, and I asked Sue to come and help me and take the pan of red onions off the stove and put them into the mince, so I could mix the whole lot in together. And just before she did, I said, throw the onions in straight away, it'll be fine. Sue came out with, I'll put them in slowly, it'll mix in better. But it wasn't Sue's voice, and that did make my hairs stand up on the back of my neck. I don't know whose voice it was, but it was a much deeper, lower voice than Sue's. I'll put them in slowly, they'll mix in better. Where it came from, I don't know, but it made us both sort of stop and think and shiver for a while. But nothing sinister, and as I say, after a while, it all seems quite normal. Someone's giving you a bit of a helping hand somewhere.
Very positive, because when we first came here and had to completely gut the place and redo it, obviously now we realised too, with Francis's guiding hand, if you like, my husband lost about 2 stone. I must have lost about a stone myself, because we were sort of driven to do it. So yes, I think it is a positive energy. It's a kind energy. There's an air of compassion and gentleness, but certainly nothing loud or disturbing in any way. And she does protect the building, and she embraces us.
It's not sinister. It's not unfriendly. It's friendly. It's almost as if someone's sort of helping you in a way, or telling you this is the wrong place to drill, you should be drilling somewhere else, or you should be trying to fix something else. It always seems to be a helping hand. And after a while you tend to look out for the 5p pieces, because you sort of you think that must have been Francis that did that.
And when we first moved in, I was quite frightened and nervous, because I'd hear these noises and think, what's that? But now we don't. We just feel, Francis is up to something. Francis is on the move. we don't worry about it at all now. So it's quite extraordinary, and I just hope she likes us being here.
very mysterious and strange place, the Botanic Garden here. Lots of people have had various different experiences. My name's Chris Kidd and I'm the curator of Vernon Botanic Garden. I've worked in a number of gardens across Europe and in Africa.
Hi, my name's Barry. Basically, I run a cleaning and maintenance contracting company on the Isle of Wight, and the Botanical Gardens happens to be one of my contracts.
Generally, there's a feeling sometimes of being observed here, particularly when it's quiet, when other people aren't around, when the visitors aren't here and when the staff aren't here. It feels like there are eyes on you and that whatever you do is being watched and observed in some way.
Started off with a feeling of someone being behind you and being watched all the time, and that gradually progressed with being touched and pulled and prodded while we were actually doing the cleaning. Particularly one night, two of my staff were in the exhibition room, and one of them came down absolutely hysterical, saying that something had just grabbed her leg. I came up with the other girl that was with us and we swapped places, and about 5 minutes later the other girl came down and said she no longer wanted to stay up there. So I agreed, because they looked too frightened to be putting it on, to be playing about, and so I agreed to lock the building up and come back in the morning when there was other members of staff here to finish the cleaning. Well, as I was locking up, I told the girls to wait for me, and I heard an almighty scream and a crash. Both the girls had run out, and the mop that they were holding was across the room. I came out and turned all the lights out and locked the door, and as I was walking across the room, something grabbed me, just sort of pinched my neck. And in the same room one night, one of the girls had forgot to clean and polish all the podiums. And she got quite a rocket in for it, and so the following night when I was locking up, I was quite disappointed to see that she hadn't cleaned one of them again. So I pulled her to one side and explained, look, you know, what bit of cleaning is confusing you, and she assured me that she had. So I must admit, I looked at all the others and they were clean apart from this one particular unit, and when I went a bit closer I realised it was a handprint, but there was something very strange about the hand. And it wasn't an actual handprint, it was like an x-ray of a hand. Now that bit was odd in itself, but there was still something about it that wasn't right. And after studying it for about 2 or 3 minutes, I suddenly realised the hand had an extra finger. It's actually got 6 fingers on it.
There was one incident which happened where I saw something visual. And what I saw, I don't know if it was a ghost, I don't know what it was, but it resembled like the steam that you might see from a kettle. It was about 1 metre off of the ground, and it had no particular form. It didn't look like a person or an animal or anything else. It just looked like mist. And I opened up where the offices are and went in and turned on the light, and when I looked across to where the photocopying machine was, I saw this shape next to the machine. And it wasn't scary or worrying at all. It was just strange to see this because I wasn't expecting to see anybody or anything in there. And the strange thing is that it kind of looked back at me, although it had no eyes or shape. It was sentient and it knew I was there. And in looking at it, I had the impression that it realised it was being observed itself, and so it moved quickly behind the photocopier so I couldn't see it. And oddly, the odd thing that you do under such circumstances, I went to follow it to see where it went. And when I went around the corner, it wasn't there. And that's when I realised I'd seen something very strange. My predecessor, the former curator, had some experiences in the potting sheds in our nursery, and they are what's left of a ward from the hospital, but it's been converted into a potting shed. And on a number of occasions he saw people and even spoke to people who he later thought may have been patients of the hospital in that area. And on one particular occasion at Christmas time, he was down there and he could smell the sort of cooking of a Christmas cake in that area.
Yeah, one night I was mopping. I personally was mopping the main stairs from the top floor down to the middle floor. And as I was mopping, Elaine, who works with me, she said, "Look at that, what's happening?" And I said, "Well, what is happening?" And as I looked up, as I was mopping backwards, and coming down the stairs that I just mopped were little tiny bare footprints. Obviously a child, they were far too small for an adult. And they were footprints of a child following me down the stairs. Similar things in the ladies' toilets. We've gone in there at the start of the shift when the building's just recently been vacated by the public, and all the taps are on in the ladies' toilets. So obviously we go off, turn them all off, and then start to clean the toilets, and you can hear running water. Bearing in mind we're the only ones in the building. You can hear running water and come out from what you're doing, and all 10 taps are on full pelt. So again, you turn them all off, go back to cleaning. A couple of minutes later, all 10 taps are on full pelt again. Don't think it's anything nasty. In the library where this is actually being filmed, I was locking one of the offices one night, and I turned away and I got a definite stroke down my face. And the girl that was with me asked me if I was ill because I'd lost all my colour, and I explained no, there was nothing wrong. I didn't want to alarm her. Due to the nature of the building, we do play tricks on each other. And I was hiding one night by the lift on the middle floor, and as I looked out the door, I thought I saw a woman walking up the stairs. Well, me playing hide and seek, as it were, looked a bit childish. So I thought, oh God, I've been called out here. But then I suddenly realised the lady wasn't walking. She was actually gliding up the stairs, and she went along a corridor, and by the time I'd got 2 paces to the door to look out, she'd gone, completely vanished. Later that night, I was waiting for the girls to finish off, and I was sat in the library with all the lights out, ready to lock up. And again, I saw this lady walk across in one of the offices. And I actually said to the girl, I said, "Oh, I've got you this time, I'm going to photograph you." And whatever it was stopped and looked straight at me, and she just disappeared. But it was the same thing that I saw gliding up the stairs.
The Smugglers Museum, which is where the boiler room used to be of the hospital that was on the site, is an area that has a real feeling of malevolence around it. And people that are, spiritualists that have been here and have been around there, they say that as well. They have confirmed that themselves. And we've had a medium here before who did some automatic writing in the area. And it's a part of the site that she wouldn't go to because the feeling of something malevolent there and really unpleasant that she didn't want to have any contact with.
I am forced to come down here at night, I will not walk round this garden. It's a very, very, very malevolent force out in the garden. In the building, not too bad at all. But outside there is something, especially in certain areas, that is very, very unpleasant. Even in daylight you can feel something's looking at you, and it's not pleasant, not nice at all.
It was a very odd thing, but there are so many things in the world that you can't explain with the reasons that we have. But these things are there, they're innate, they're inside you, you can feel these feelings, this feeling of being observed.